Right. I was trying to see how I feature myself as well, but I'm not sure how to do that. I don't know what happens if I pin myself. There we go. All right. Welcome, you guys. For anybody that doesn't know me, my name is Conley, and I am the founder of Lantana Legal Consulting and of Legal Nurse Education. I'm so excited to have you guys here tonight on your Thursday evening with all of our other legal nurse consultants and also people in the legal space. So this is a win for yourself being here tonight and connecting with everyone. Please drop your LinkedIn, like I mentioned before, in the chat. I would love to connect with you. This is a great opportunity to connect with other legal nurses. And I'm sure we'll talk about this within the Q&A, but something that is extremely, extremely important for you as a legal nurse consultant when you are first starting out, whether you've been a legal nurse consultant for years and have a successful business, is networking. It's a huge, important part of being successful and maintaining a successful legal nurse consultant business. Thank you all for being here. So I wanted to start, I like to start out the Q&A by just telling you a little bit about myself, my nursing career, how I ended up creating legal nurse education that you're here at today. And then we'll have a Q&A. I'd love to answer any questions for you guys that you have about legal nurse consulting, my career and getting started, or about legal nurse education. So like I said, my name's Conley. I have been a nurse for almost a decade now. I graduated in 2017 from nursing school. And when I first started as a nurse, I began in the emergency room. I started working in at a trauma center right outside of Atlanta. From there, I started travel nursing about 2 years into my nursing career. I actually had a travel nurse come through and I was like, oh, this is such a cool career. I would love to be a travel nurse. I don't know if I can do it. And funny enough, she was like, you know, girl, if you can work at this hospital, you can work at any hospital. You can definitely be a travel nurse. So that encouraged me to start travel nursing. And I started travel nursing, did my first assignment at a level 1 trauma center in Colorado, had an incredible experience with that and was super excited to kind of begin my travel nursing career. And then COVID hit. So COVID hit while I was still in Colorado. I had extended a few times just because I really, really enjoyed it. And then when COVID ended up hitting, I went to New York City. So I was those nurses who went right during the peak of COVID. And it was definitely a life-changing experience. It was a pivotal moment in my nursing career. I learned a lot. I bonded with so many other nurses that I was working with in New York. I was there for about 2 months and learned a lot because while I was there, I was an ER nurse, but they were taking ER nurses to come to New York, and work in the ICU. So we were crash course trained to be ICU nurses. And I started working in the ICU with about 25 other ER nurses. And that was an incredible experience of one, just being working through COVID together, but also really learning, what the symbiosis of what the ER and the ICU working together, because being an ER nurse, I had taken ICU holds at trauma centers, but I had never fully taken care of ICU patients. So being able to kind of see the ICU side and put those two together and give me a better understanding of exactly how the standard of care works in both areas. I started working in the ICU still during COVID after New York, all over the country doing COVID contracts in the ICU. And then when I got through with those contracts in about 2021, I made my way to California after going to many different places in the US. I was in Florida, Texas, Colorado, like I mentioned. I've also travel nursed in Hawaii, but I ended up making my way to Southern California. And I am one of those nurses. I've come out to California and I have never left. So since first arriving in San Diego, I've been in California. But when I started in working in California, I learned I was extremely burnt out from the bedside. I mean, just incredibly burnt out. So I wanted to find something different. And that is when I actually first discovered legal nurse consulting. I had heard about it and I really started researching on the internet. I couldn't really find necessarily like a really something that I really felt was worth the value just based off of my internet research. So I ended up taking at the time I went into home health. I was working in management because I was so burnt out and I didn't want to be at the bedside anymore. And that's when I first kind of was introduced to management of nurses and education of nurses. And I was leisurely kind of looking into legal nurse consulting at the time and decided I wanted to take the plunge. So I ended up purchasing a course that was a few $1,000s. Went through the course, and like many people that purchase a course in legal nurse consulting, you know, you kind of get through this course, and then I was like, I have this knowledge, and I felt like I already had a lot of the knowledge even that they taught me in the course. It was good practice, but I was like, you know, I don't know how to apply this. I don't know how to get attorney clients. And so I made it my mission to figure that out. So what I did was I ended up finding quite a few different mentors in this space in different services of legal nurse consulting, because something that I found also kind of had mixed messaging while I was researching legal nurse consulting is what exactly a legal nurse can do. And there's many different services that you can provide as a legal nurse consultant. There's not one singular service. And so I actually began by doing nurse observer exams. And if you're not familiar with the nurse observer exam is, it's on the personal injury side, workers' comp insurance side. And what that is that let's say that a plaintiff has an injury and they are claiming that their right shoulder has been injured. The defense, in some cases, will hire a medical doctor to examine that injury. We, as nurses, can, on the legal nurse consulting side, can work as nurse observers to accompany that plaintiff to the exam. And why that's so important is because in these exams, the defense technically, right, has the doctor has a potential bias to make your injuries look less than because they're being paid by the other side. Just like us as a nurse observer would potentially have bias because we're being paid by the plaintiff side. So by allowing there to be a nurse observer and a medical doctor in the room during these exams, you allow for everybody to be to kind of eliminate that bias, because there is two witnesses to the exams and their reports should reflect each other. So that's actually how I got my start in legal nurse consulting, and I loved it. I was like, oh, I love doing these exams because I'm still applying my nursing skill and knowledge and assessment. But I'm also getting to review these demands and responses that are coming from the plaintiff and the defense side for personal injury. So I was kind of dipping my toes into what it was like to review legal documents. So I was like, okay, I really, really like this. I really want to be a legal nurse consultant, but I don't know how to get any clients. You know, I took this course and there's nobody telling me, okay, this is what you need to do to be able to get them. There were some LinkedIn strategies people had told me. I started cold DMing, emailing every single attorney's email I could get my hands on, or LinkedIn connection I could get my hand on. And I mean, I was getting nowhere. And I was like, okay, I know that there's many successful legal nurses. I know there's a way, there's so many attorneys in the country. I like to tell people, you know, I think there's like 60,000 attorneys in Manhattan alone. I'm like, there's work out there for me. How do I find these attorneys to work with me? So fast forward, I probably had been trying to get into the legal nurse consulting space as an entrepreneur for probably about 3 to 4 months at the time. And I was like, you know, I think I need to try a different tactic of, instead of being online, because it feels just like I'm a needle in a haystack trying to talk to an attorney online. Why don't I go to like an in-person event and see if that gets me any traction? So I ended up finding an event in California that was, I felt, you know, wasn't too expensive, because I talk a lot about in the community. It's really important when you're starting a business as well, not to spend a bunch of money that you don't have on either like conferences or marketing, whatever it might be, because it's really better to use more of a profit first mindset. You know, don't spend money that you don't have when you're first getting started. So I found a conference, and I say that because I found a conference that was under $1,000, so it wasn't going to break my bank. I ended up going to that conference and I walked away with 5 or 6 attorney clients that I still work with today. And from that moment, I was like, wow, I figured it out. I know how to get clients now, and not to say that those were instant clients. It takes a little bit of time to be able to start working with an attorney, but I knew from those interactions that I even had, I was like, this is how I'm going to be successful, and this is how I'm going to grow my legal nurse consulting business. And so I started getting business from these attorneys, and I quickly realized that I didn't have enough nurses to keep up with the demand of what I had just created, and which is a great problem to have. And so I was like, you know what, why don't I create an educational platform so that I can teach. I had a bunch of friends that wanted to get involved in legal nurse consulting, and I was like, why don't I create some sort of educational platform so that way I can onboard my friends or onboard these nurses that I'm working with, so that they can do either exams for me or they can do reviews for me, whatever the case may be. And then while I was creating it, I was like, there's not really, a place that I doesn't necessarily recommended for education. The course I had taken still didn't teach how to get clients. And I was like, why don't I make it available to all nurses and make it affordable for all nurses? And then I can teach them also how to get these clients, because I felt that it was kind of being gatekept. I couldn't find this information anywhere. And I found also many other ways of finding clients, not just going to conferences. I didn't feel like there was necessarily anybody that was teaching this day and age, 21st century. How do you market 21st century? How do you run your Instagram? How do you run your Facebook? How do you get clients through TikTok? And so I was like, you know what? I want to create a space that's accessible and affordable to all nurses, because in my experience, it wasn't accessible and affordable. And so I wanted to break that barrier. And that's kind of how the idea of legal nurse education came to be. So that was back probably a little bit over a year ago, when I was scaling and had to create the educational piece. And I decided, okay, I want to launch this last year in July. We launched in July, and I really wanted the focus to, again, be community, because as I like to say in the community a lot, and like I'll say many times tonight, there's not one singular way to be a legal nurse. And there's not one singular way to market yourself. There's not one singular way to run your business. And I know that because I worked with several different legal nurse consultants that were successful in their practices, and they all were doing something different. And so for me, I wanted legal nurse education to be a place that wasn't just the Conley method, but was a place that many different legal nurses could come, depending on wherever you're at in your legal nurse consulting journey, whether you're novice or you've had a successful practice for a long time. We could come together and share what works and what doesn't work, because there's more than enough attorneys for us to all be successful and to all win in legal nurse consulting. And so that was, like, again, the second kind of piece of why I created legal nurse education and why it came to be. So I launched it back in July, and we have grown to, I think we're at almost 1,600 nurses in less than a year. So it's been just incredible. And we have many different legal nurse consultants within our community that are at all different stages. And it's just been so extremely rewarding to work with nurses who are completely brand new to legal nursing and seeing them getting their first case and their first client or their first subcontracting case. And it's also super rewarding to see other successful legal nurses who are scaling their business or who are opening up mentorship, and being able to see them grow in that as well. And so I'm so thankful for the community that we've built, and for being able to break down barriers into this nursing specialty, because I truly do believe that legal nursing is a specialty of nursing, and you don't have to pay thousands of dollars to go from the ER to the ICU. You shouldn't have to pay thousands of dollars to go from the ER, ICU, or OR, or home health, wherever you are, to legal nurse consulting. And so I'm so honored and happy to be able to have that space for nurses and be able to have education that first is free, because a lot of my difficulty when I first started was I didn't even know what legal nurse consulting was, but to really find out what it was, I felt like I had to pay thousands of dollars to be able to get that insight. And so now being able to have this community and have free resources for nurses so that they can first check out this specialty first and see, is this something that would be flexible and work with my life? Is this something that I want to do? And I find that, nurses really, really enjoy this specialty and the community that we've grown. I'm just so thankful for the entire community. So thank you guys so much for being here tonight. Thank you for listening to my entire my shortened nursing journey. And I'm super excited to answer all the questions that you have. And I will kind of fill in through the Q&A, information about all the different educational offerings that we have at Legal Nurse Education, what is coming up. And I do have my business partner here today, Katrina, who you don't have to come off camera, but I have my business partner as well, Katrina, here today. And we have launched our preceptor program. So I will talk a little bit about that while we're getting started with the Q&A. So if you have any questions, please put them into the chat. Katrina is helping me moderate. So if you put the questions into the chat, I'll start talking about some of our educational offerings and answer those questions as they come in. And also, yes, please post your LinkedIn as well. Definitely want to connect with everyone. But so while this community was growing, we had a lot of nurses that reached out to me that really wanted more of a formal education piece. And, I really went back and forth a lot about what an more formal education of legal nurse consulting would look like, because like I mentioned before, I'll say a few things. I think that you have 80% of the knowledge you really need to be a successful legal nurse as a nurse. There's about 20% of knowledge that you kind of need additionally to be successful. And so I wanted to make sure that if I were to offer a program, that we're really bringing that 20% to you. And I had difficulty with determining what exactly that program looked like, because in my experience, and a lot of legal nurses' experience, you take a program, you have this knowledge, but then you don't really have anything to do with this knowledge that you just learned. Sometimes a lot of your questions as a legal nurse consultant can come while you are working your first case, or the first time you're interacting with an attorney and you're trying to figure out how you are going to navigate the case and what questions you need to ask him. So while I was determining what did that look like, I kept coming back to, I really think that every other nursing specialty has preceptors. I think that legal nursing should also have preceptors. One, because I truly believe that part of my success in legal nursing was having somewhat of a preceptor or mentor at the very beginning of my journey. And I know that even as nurses, we all remember the first preceptor we had, or the preceptors we had in the units that we hadn't been on before as new nurses. And so I wanted to be able to create those relationships for people and have a nurse be able to go through our program at a preceptor program and say, yeah, Conley was my preceptor, Katrina was my preceptor, Tori was my preceptor. We still have a relationship today, even if it's years down the road. And that can be somebody that you, have not just a connection with, but a networking relationship with. And I think that there's something to be said about that in nursing. And so I really did want to create a preceptor program. So that is what we've done. And I'll put the link in the chat, because we do have our wait list. We have over 100 nurses on the wait list for our program in the fall. So if you are interested in being in our preceptor program, please sign up for the wait list, because when we release our fall dates and our fall availability, everyone on that wait list will get the email first, and we will allow everyone on the wait list the opportunity to join first. So so we created this preceptor program, me and Katrina, who's on the call today. And the reason, and it's been so great as well, because me and Katrina both bring such different experience. So Katrina works in-house as a legal nurse consultant for a defense malpractice firm, and I work as an entrepreneur with a successful legal nurse consulting business, and I provide all legal nursing services. So both of our experience combined, we're really able to provide our nurses through the program advice and expertise in in every realm. And that is really my goal, is that, you know, I want people that go through our program, at the end of our preceptor program, you leave with a 90-day plan, because the last thing I want is for this to be my experience where I get a bunch of knowledge, I pay for a bunch of knowledge, and then I have no idea how to apply it. So my goal is that every nurse that goes through our preceptor program will have a 90-day plan, and they will either get their first client or they will get their first job within 90 days of completing our preceptor program. We're currently in our beta round. We are on week 3. So we just started our program May 4th, I believe was the day that we started it. I can't even, it's been a busy month, so I'm trying to remember exactly when, but we've been meeting on Mondays every week for 2 hours. And it has just been so incredible the past 2 weeks, coming up on 3 weeks, with all the nurses in the beta program. And we did it as a beta round because, like I've mentioned before, you know, this is something that has never been done before in legal nursing, a preceptor program. And I want to be able to, when we offer and officially launch this in the fall, I want this to be the best value that it can possibly be for nurses. So our beta round is very feedback heavy. We're getting a lot of feedback from the nurses that are currently in the program about the individual attention that they're getting, the curriculum, the assignments that they're doing, so that way during the summer we can the program to be the best that it can be for our official launch in the fall. So that is a little bit about our preceptor program. I would love for you to sign up with our wait list. And then if you are a nurse who is interested in being a preceptor in our program, I will put this link here as well. This is our application, our interest form. If you're interested in being a preceptor, we are looking to hire preceptors for the fall and for moving forward with our winter and 2027 cohorts as well. So I will put this in here. Any questions about the preceptor program, feel free to put those in the chat. We do not, because we're in our beta round, we have our beta round curriculum available, but we will be releasing our official curriculum for the program in June. So as soon as our beta program is finished, we will be rolling out all the information for the fall. But feel free to ask me any questions that you have about the program, either the beta or the launch in the fall as well. And thank you to everybody in this call that is involved with our beta program, whether you are observing and giving us feedback, or you're a participant and a preceptee. Thank you so much. It's been amazing. Katie, do you all have financing options or planning on the future? Yeah, so the plan for the fall is we will have financing options. You can do either, we'll have payment plan options, or you could just pay a flat fee. Yeah, guys, let me know any questions that you have. If you are not already a lifetime member of our community, you can use code Nurses Week. I think we also, Tori has a code. I don't know who else is in here with a code, but you can use Nurses Week or code Tori. I believe yours is just code Tori, right? To get 20% off of our lifetime membership for being here today in the live training and for Nurses Week. So if you haven't already, I highly recommend it. There's many people in this call that can attest to the value that our membership has, but what is really the most incredible piece of it is every week on Tuesdays, we have an office hours. And it's a time for us where we all come together for an hour and we share our wins and learnings for the week. It helps hold us all accountable. I mean, I look forward to it every single Tuesday because it holds me accountable at my legal nursing goals. It helps hold others accountable. And it's a place where you can ask questions, right? Because something that I found and why I created the office hours was sometimes when you're working as a legal nurse consultant, you just have like a singular question or two, and you just need somebody to be able to ask that to. And so I wanted to be able to create a forum in a place that was private, that you could come and you could ask questions of other nurses without having to pay hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars to be able to ask your question. And so that is kind of, I believe, the most incredible value that we have, being able to have that weekly. And our membership also, everything's recorded. So going back to the mission of being accessible and affordable, I know that we're all nurses. I know that we all work different shifts. I know that we all have different things that go on in our lives. And so if you're a member, every single training that we do, so including this one, is recorded and available for replay for you. So just another another amazing feature that we have with our membership. Our membership also does include some modules, so some learning aspects as well. However, I never wanted legal nurse education to feel like hospital modules. I actually work in education, and I I didn't want to do two of the same. And I think we all have a little bit of trauma with when it comes to modules as nurses. So I just did not, I wanted that as a learning option because I know we all learn differently, but that is not meant to be the core foundation of what legal nurse education is. And every month we have guest speakers. So we have a guest speaker next Thursday. We have guest speakers in June and July. Kenny, who's here in the call today, is going to be one of our guest speakers in the future, coming up in a couple months. So it's super exciting to be able to bring members of the legal nursing community together and share our knowledge and what works and what doesn't work, and what we and impart that knowledge on others, because I think all of us in this community, we want to see each other win. There's no gatekeeping. There's no, we don't need to keep the knowledge for ourselves. And so that's another amazing aspect, is having so many amazing legal nurses and legal people within the legal field that have come and do guest speaking appearances, and those are all available for replay as well. So in our membership, you get access to all of the replays forever as a lifetime member. And our lifetime membership is only for the first 500 nurses, and we grow in our nurses every single day. So once we reach 500, the pricing will change. But as a thank you to everybody, because I get asked all the time, they're like, it seems like it's too good to be true. And I'm like, it is a lower price point, but that's because I wanted to say it is a thank you for the first 500 people that believe in the mission of legal nurse education. But enough of my rambling. What questions do you guys have for me? Anything about legal nursing? So what do you know now that would have saved you the most time when you were starting out? I recently submitted my first chronology as a subcontractor, and I feel as if I spent way too much time reviewing the records compared to what the contractor expected. Interesting. Okay. Did you ask the contractor at first what their expectation was? Like, did they give you feedback that it was too about your hours and how much you reported? That would be my first question, is was there like an expectation? I would say when you're first starting out, what would have saved me time is reminding myself, what is the claim? What is the client alleging? Or what is the plaintiff alleging? What am I trying to defend if I'm on the defense side? Reminding yourself what exactly you're looking for. It's really easy when you're doing a chronology to just start at the beginning or just start wherever. Really narrowing it down to what is actually necessary. And there's a little bit of a learning curve when it comes to when you first start. So just trying to also keep in mind, Troy, like, is what I'm doing right now billable hours, or am I just learning this? And this is kind of more learning curve, I would say as well, is important. With chronologies too, making sure you kind of already have a plan for how you're going to approach it and what your chronology will look like, and always asking questions. So I would ask the person you're subcontracting for, how detailed do you want this chronology? Do you have an example for me? If you're subcontracting, is something that I like to tell people that are subcontracting, or what I did in the when I first started out is, do you have an example for me? Because that can really help shape, okay, this is what this nurse is looking for, this attorney is looking for. And then again, like I said, asking questions about how long would you expect I also like to say, I do this with attorneys, not as much subcontracting, but you could do this for subcontracting as well. Say, hey, I anticipate this is probably going to take me like 8 hours. I'll let you know if I'm approaching 8 hours or if I think I'm going to go over, so that way they kind of have an idea as well of where you're at. And then you don't just slap them with a number of hours on your invoice that they're not expecting. I'm trying to think about anything else about chronologies. Just having a template already ready. But again, the detail. She did say initially to let her know when I reached 12 to 16 hours so she can keep an eye on her budget. I charge her for 16 hours when I probably spent closer to 20. I did a lot of side quests that I would consider learning. Okay, then I think that's appropriate. I mean, if she said when you reach 12 to 16 and then you reach 16, I think that's fine. You know, if you would have billed her for 24 when she told you to when you'd reach 12, 16, then I'd say something. So I think that's totally fine. Unless she just said something about the 16, she was probably expecting you to be somewhere about 12, 16 if she put that in there. So I think that's totally fine. And just, I would say, like, just making sure you're keeping exact track of what you're doing, you know? So if you feel like you're doing more of like a side quest of learning, like setting a timer and letting yourself, take that out. What I like to do is I keep a timesheet, and all the nurses that I have that work for me need to keep a timesheet of the hours that they're working. And I offer that to the attorney if they want to see it so they can see the billable hours that they worked. A good question. What else, you guys? Harvest has been really, is that a application or like a website? Is it free? Right now, my team just documents on Google Sheets their time. So what other questions, you guys? Okay, it's one fee for a year. Okay, I'll have to check that out. Yeah, that's a really good point. Katrina said you can also ask if they want you to provide research while doing the cron. Because that's something she side quests as an in-house. So yeah, if you also needed to do any like research. Yeah, it's a really good point. What other questions, you guys? I'm just talking a little bit about, the core services of legal nursing. There's 3 core services that we teach at Legal Nurse Education. And the first is behind the scenes medical record review. That's probably the most common service that you'll see legal nurses provide. And that can be in an in-house setting like Katrina, or it could be as an entrepreneur or as a subcontractor. There's many different ways to get started in that arena. I would say the most effective way to get started is by networking with other legal nurse consultants. That's going to be, if anytime somebody asks me what's the first step to be a legal nurse consultant, it is to set up your LinkedIn and start creating a network of legal nurse consultants. Hands down. Because regardless of where you're at in your journey of a legal nurse consultant, you need to have other legal nurse consultants in your tool belt to be able to ask questions or refer to other attorneys. There's often times that you're reviewing a record and an attorney needs a specific nurse of a specific specialty to review the record. And if you already have a network of legal nurse consultants that you know, that makes it that much easier and saves you that much time. So that's the first thing I would say is important for any service, but especially if you want to get started and you're brand new. The second service you can provide, which is another common service, is expert services. So an expert service is when you are providing an expert opinion for the standard of care for the specialty that the attorney is requesting. The difference between expert work and behind the scenes is that as an expert, there is the potential that you would either be called for a deposition or for trial. Now, keeping in mind that almost all cases settle, it's like 96, 97% of cases settle. So the probability of you going to trial is slim. I know a lot of nurses who've been deposed. I've been called to be deposed before. So that is a little bit more likely, and it's more lucrative because you are having to give your opinion professionally on the standard of care in a deposition or trial. So that's a more lucrative service you can offer. It's probably the most lucrative service you could do as a legal nurse consultant. And what's important in being an expert is that you are confident in the nursing standard of care of the specialty you are speaking to. This is not something that you would want to do if you don't feel confident in that, because your expert opinion is going to either help defend the defendant or the plaintiff. And so it's very important that you're able to be objective and unbiased and give a correct standard of care opinion for the case. The third service that you can provide is our nurse as a nurse observer service. I talked about that a little bit before, but that's when you go with the plaintiff to a defense or independent medical exam, and you are a third party and a witness, an observer. You provide a report for the attorney about the exam. Sometimes you're allowed to, depending on the state you're in, you provide audio and video. And so that is a really great service as well that you can very scalable as well. I did an exam a couple weeks ago just because I hadn't done one in a while and needed to get my feet wet again. But if you're looking to be more of a entrepreneur that's scaling a business, that's a great way to scale a business where you're not doing the actual service and you can hire other nurses. I hire nurses all over the country to provide nurse observer exams. So again, another great option. So 3 very different routes you can take in legal nursing, all very lucrative. And that's why I created Legal Nurse Education, because I wanted a place where you could learn all of those. Okay, Julie, for the preceptor class, let me put the link for you. What questions do you guys have? Carolyn said, been doing the emails. How long to follow up if no response? Good question. I don't do a whole lot of email marketing just because it's very difficult to get responses on emails. I think if you ask really any legal nurse, it's a difficult journey. Really, the best thing that you can do is I like to follow up within, if I send an email, I'm going to follow up within a week. And then if they don't respond within a week, then I'm probably going to reach out again in 30 days. And then from there, another 30 days, 60 days. But excuse me, I think a good metric to use is a week after you send them an email, following up a week later. Probably the same on LinkedIn as well. But again, it's pretty difficult, I would say, to find success in email marketing, just because think about yourself. Even when you receive an email that's salesy, you really got to create, and I teach this within our membership, and I share the exact pitches that I use when I go to in-person events, exactly what I say in an email. And so for me, I feel like it's so important. I teach this, that you have to create a relationship first with attorneys before you just start pitching to them. And that's just sales in general. You have to create some sort of networking relationship or connection with them. So it's just going to be a better use of your time. So if you're on LinkedIn, liking attorneys' posts, commenting on attorneys' posts, something genuine, posting something on LinkedIn that's genuine. A lot of our community I've seen recently has done well on LinkedIn because they're sharing not just about their nursing knowledge, but they share just a little bit about themselves. It's just psychology-wise, people buy from people. And so an attorney is much more likely to engage with you and purchase from you and use your services if they know who you are and they see your professional presence, as opposed to somebody that they have no idea who they are and they just randomly got an email from them. So I would say, if you do a lot of emails and you just get no response and you get burnt out with that, that's not uncommon. A lot of people feel that. Try to tweak either the email, the subject lines, the preview lines, or trying to also put more effort into those initial connections and then following up with emails or LinkedIn messages. But in person is, if you want to go fast, in person is going to be the fastest way for you to reach attorney clients. Just because the digital space is just crowded. And so you're gonna be into the numbers thing. A lot of the time when I go to attorney conferences, I'm the only legal nurse consultant there. And a lot of them have never even heard of legal nurse consultants. So it's amazing because you're really able to be the one contact that they have if they need one. So another great tactic is going to in person to attorney offices if you're comfortable with doing that, and just dropping off your business card, asking to speak, just talking to the person at the front desk, creating a relationship with the person at the front desk. Paralegals as well is a really great resource to talk to, and connection to make, because they sometimes are who is communicating with attorneys the most. So I just highly, highly recommend any kind of in-person relationships you can make will go faster than digital. Digital does work, but it's just a harder road. Yeah, and that Katrina brings up a really, really good point. Consider the type of attorney you're emailing as well. The way that you would approach these attorneys would be different. And we talk about that within our membership as well, but that's a really, really good point. Natalia, I'm going to an attorney conference by myself next month. How would you suggest to approach attorneys from the start? Really great question. Depends, again, like Katrina said, well, what kind of attorney conference are you going to? Is it going to be malpractice? Is it going to be personal injury? Is it going to be workers' comp, insurance? It's all dependent. When you're talking to an attorney, it's all dependent upon what kind of attorney. Personal injury, perfect. This is like my bread and butter. I'm not going to share. If you want the exact pitch that I use, you have to join our membership. You can use code Nurses Week. But I really like to approach personal injury attorneys talking first about nurse observers. And why is because it's a very easy flow if they don't already use nurse observers for me to be able to explain that service. If they do already use nurse observers, I can match their price, or I can tell them why my nurse observers are going to provide more value than the nurse observers that they're currently using. Then I can also, after I explain to them the nurse observer service, then I can mention the medical record review side. A lot of personal injury attorneys also do malpractice, and a lot of personal injury attorneys also need medical record review, causation analysis, for their cases as well. And so I like to, Natalia, start first talking about nurse observers, if you're familiar with that service, because I think that's a good gateway. But at any conference you go to, any in-person event you're going to, be yourself. Try to take the pressure off of I'm here to sell my services. Take that thought away, because if you go into an attorney conference with I need to sell my services, you're not going to sell anything, because you're not going to come across as authentic. What you need to do is you need to walk into these conferences with the idea of I'm going to create relationships. That is going to get you so much farther if you use that mindset. And I've had nurses that have worked through legal nurse education that have worked for me, and they come to me and they say, I went to this attorney conference. I didn't talk to any personal injury attorneys. It was a total bust. And I tell them, I've gotten many referrals from attorneys that were not personal injury or malpractice. I've gotten a referral from a real estate attorney that sent my information over to a malpractice attorney. So it's all about the mindset you bring into what you're doing. You know, if you are only going around looking for personal injury attorneys, it's going to come across that way. You've really got to authentically, I say when you go to an attorney conference, I try to tell myself, I'm going to walk away from this conference with 5 genuine connections with attorneys or networking relationships with attorneys. And that really, I think, helps frame my mindset, right? Because when you can create a connection with somebody, they're going to remember you, and they're going to be more likely to work with you. So that would be my approach. Just try to take the pressure off of selling and try to just go in and be yourself. You know, there's not an easier opener than an attorney coming up to you and say, hey, what are you doing here? And you go, I'm a nurse. They're going to be like, what? What are you doing here? It's so easy. I mean, you literally set yourself up just by being at the conference, because these attorneys are used to going to attorney conferences and only meeting other attorneys. So you already are setting yourself up for pretty easy conversations and easy, I would say, like normal conversations, right? Because you don't, if you get into if you try to just sell, they sniff that out, just like we sniff it out, right? Just think about yourself. Like if somebody approaches you immediately trying to get something from you or get you to buy a service, you can feel that. And I totally agree. Natalia, go. And I can't tell you how many times members of our community go to these events and then afterwards they are like, I can't, that was so much easier and better than I thought it was. Like, I don't know why I was so scared to do it. So do it. And I think after you do it, you'll end up being like, okay, I can totally do this again. And I can totally do this. That is such a good point. Kenny said you can also offer to give a presentation to a law firm or at a conference. That is such a great option. I know that a lot of legal nurses, especially at the AALNC conference, mentioned they'll do like a lunch and learn, which is kind of what Kenny is saying, where you can go to a law office and say, hey, I would love to present about reviewing medical records, standard of care for a case, any kind of example you might want to give, personal injury analysis, and that's a really great way to kind of educate attorneys and talk to them. Or same thing, give a presentation at a conference. It's a really good option to connect with people too. Yeah, and that'll be more difficult to get. So, and sometimes it just takes a little bit of time. You know, it's kind of a numbers thing too with this. The more you ask, the more opportunity you're going to have. Yep. Troy said the LNC I recently subcontracted with said she got her biggest ROI with lunch and learns. And I totally believe that. I mean, think about how the relationships you're going to create in a situation like that. I mean, you're able to meet each person individually, one-on-one. You're able to show them in a presentation the value that you can bring to their cases to save them time, to save them money. Natalia said, how many business cards do you typically hand out at attorney conferences, small or big? I mean, I bring 50 to 100 always, just because, not that I'm going to probably meet that many, but you don't want to run out. You know, you never want to run out. My biggest tip is when you go to an attorney conference, on your phone, put on your phone your LinkedIn QR code as your background, because all the attorney conferences, they don't even want my business card anymore. They just want to scan my LinkedIn and add me on LinkedIn. So you still need to bring physical business cards because there are some attorneys that are going to want physical, but I'd say majority of attorneys that I meet now, they just want to scan my LinkedIn and follow me on LinkedIn. And honestly, I like that better because I'm able to put the name to the face on LinkedIn when I'm going to follow up, and I can remember this person, because the problem with business cards is a lot of them don't have the person's face on it. And if you're just collecting business cards, it's so difficult to remember who that person is, like a year down the road or 6 months down the road while you're looking through your attorney contacts. So if I do give out a business card or I get somebody's business card that's physical, I literally will make sure you have a pen while you're there, and I write down like a descriptor on their business card if they don't have a picture, for me to remember, because sometimes I get so many and it's just too much to keep up with. So I actually really recommend, if somebody gives you a business card, I would actually recommend say, hey, can I add you on LinkedIn as well? And just do it right there, so that way you create that connection. Then I like to say, you know, if you go to a conference and you're connecting with LinkedIn, then you can follow a follow-up cadence of reaching out to everybody, you know, 2 to 4 or 5 days after the conference and say, hey, it's so great to connect with you. Hope we can continue to support each other. And that is like literally my pitch. I do that for almost every single person that I meet as a follow-up. Because again, that shows that I'm looking to connect with you, support your business, support my business. We can support each other without, you know, asking for something. And I think that's really, really important when you're providing services. Yeah, and I would say you're probably only going to give out 25, 50 cards, but it's always better to have more just in case. So. Great question. I don't ever do booths at conferences. That's kind of also part of my secret sauce. I really enjoy just attending as an attendee because I don't like being confined to a booth. I think it also it's again salesy. Your people are just coming by, dropping in their card, or you already have this immediate connotation of this person is trying to sell me a service, right? Because I'm behind a booth. I find that when I go to the conferences and I just sit in the audience, it's again, the opener is so easy. They're like, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm a nurse and I'm looking to learn just like you guys, because I'm a legal nurse consultant." And they're like, "Wow, that's so cool. Never met a nurse here." And it flows naturally. And then I'm able to talk about my services, why I'm there. Yeah, I always take notes on the attorney presentation. Anytime I go to an attorney conference, I am learning just like the other attorneys because there is so much knowledge. I mean, I'm probably taking more notes than any attorney in there because there's just so much for me to learn as not somebody that practices law. So absolutely go to the attorney presentations and listen and take notes as you need to. I think that that was actually something that really, really helped me going to one of the personal injury attorney conferences that I did back a couple years ago. Really helped me understand how personal injury and insurance work together. And so I was able to understand the back end of that because the conference was all about personal injury attorneys submitting claims to insurance companies, essentially. So I learned all about the back end of that, which really helped me to understand what I need to say to attorneys and how I can bring value to their cases so that the insurance companies are going to approve the claims. So I would say you will find so much value in going to an attorney conference. You're going to learn so much. Do you have a goal of a certain number of attorney conferences per year? My goal is usually one per year, because just now with legal nurse education, I don't have the time, but I have a team now that works for me at Lantana, who are going to be going to the conferences for me. So hopefully goal for 2027 is probably 2 to 3 conferences, but not maybe myself. Yes. Oh, Carolyn, that's such a great thing. I teach this as well within the membership. Your local bar association is an amazing way to meet attorneys. I am a member of multiple bar associations in the country. I am connected with them. So that's another really great thing you can do. Look up the bar association for your state, wherever you're at. Find a contact and say, "Hey, I want to learn more about being a legal service provider and being connected with the bar association and what events I can attend. If there, like Kenny mentioned, is there a presentation I could do for the bar association?" Highly, highly recommend looking at bar association events. I've met many clients through that. It's all different. All bar associations are different. Some are like, yes, you can come to every event if you pay, we don't care. Some are like only attorneys. Some are like, you can only go if you sponsor. So my recommendation is to find somebody that is on the bar association website that is affiliated with sponsorships, or because I like to get them on a Zoom call or talk to them on the phone and ask them in person, basically, what are my options, and tell them about my business. And then they're great. I mean, I even talked to one bar association, state bar association, that was like, "Oh, I'll take you around at this event and introduce you to every personal injury attorney." I was like, perfect. So guys, don't be afraid to ask. I think that's another thing that is really, really important as a business owner is you have to ask. You have to ask and you have to make connections. Okay, I'm reading through. Now you need to go. Yeah. What do you sign up as though? Mine had 20 categories. Well, that's the problem, is that, you know, if you're a legal service provider, they're going to charge you a lot more for whatever event it is because they can. So if you're, sometimes it can be more advantageous, maybe even for somebody like Kenny, who's a medical doctor, because sometimes they'll give like a doctor rate to events, which can sometimes be a little bit cheaper. But as nurses, as legal service providers, that's when you need to get in contact with somebody and say, I'm going to sign up for this category. So you emailed the member director. She advised this, not sure how I approach it at all. Approach what? Just the bar association in general, or? You said, oh, I see here, seems more social than business. Okay, to attend. Yeah, no, they all the bar associations are like pretty much social happy hours. But it's all networking. Great questions, you guys. Well, we are at time. It is 6 o'clock. I want to thank everybody so much for being here on a Thursday evening and lots of great questions. Thank you for listening to All About Legal Nurse Education. I hope that this has helped you, and good luck at your attorney conference. I'll put the preceptor waitlist and then also our membership. If you're not already a member, we would love to have you. This 20% off code actually is going to end tomorrow. So if you want to be a member, I highly recommend joining. Thank you all for being here. If you're a member, this will be uploaded shortly, so you can watch the replay or send it to any of your member friends. But thank you again for being here.